Hi ladies, I'm Pidge.
And I'm Moen.
Welcome to the Night Shift Court podcast. We are two shift-working fantasy book lovers and love nothing more than leaving reality behind for a bookish adventure.
Join us as we go under the mountain to discuss our favourite fantasy fiction tales and the authors behind them.
Come with us to explore the stories, one shift at a time. Hi ladies.
Hi! Wicka, welcome back.
Not expecting that.
I know. And I've decided.
Do you do things just see how
for
I
the
react?
reaction. Fuck yeah. Oh, it gives me great joy.
Oh, okay. All right.
Welcome back, everyone. Episode 19.
Yeah.
A Court of Mist and Fury.
Yeah, we're getting into the good stuff at the summer court.
Oh, I'm excited about this one.
Yeah.
Chapters 36 to 40. Let's dissect this.
Okay. Well, first of all, Feyre's feeling terrible.
Yes, she is.
She does indeed feel bad about how she's planning to deceive and has been deceiving Tarquin during her time at the summer court. However, she also realises very quickly that Tarquin has a vision for this new world that he wants to create, where he wants to basically eliminate the divide between the high fae and the lesser fae. But she realises that without the book and without defeating Highburn, this new world that he's thinking about will never actually happen.
Yeah.
So she justifies it.
It's Under the Mountain 2.0. You've got to kill the three fae, the three-hooded fae, to get to the goodies.
Yeah.
And the goodies are, that you actually get to live.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
this is exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah. And on the day of the heist, she
I love that.
she spends the day with Tarquin, going around seeing the people eating the fish at the docks, all that sort of lovely summer court stuff. The whole time she's thinking about the book and stealing it. She's just sort of putting up with Tarquin for the day, as she does. She returns to her room after dinner, and on her bed she finds her Lyrian leathers and knives and things like that waiting for her. And so she dresses for battle once again.
Yeah. I do quite like this because this is how Feyre really measures herself. And she doesn't have a lot to really be proud of or to really dive into, but this kind of stuff is her thing. She comes alive when she's got a task and when she's doing the greater good kind of work.
Yeah.
So I do like it. So Amren and Feyre go to the temple and Rhys is the watchkeeper.
Yeah.
So they begin digging down because it's quite muddy to get to the actual door.
Yeah,
so
she kind of describes it as like muck, doesn't
Yeah.
she? Like sandy seaweed,
Yes.
sticks, like almost like muddy sand. Yeah,
Correct.
I can picture it.
Yeah. And Feyre impressively manages to shift into Tarquin
Yes.
to unlock the door.
Yeah. She actually, not only in her mind, but she shapeshifts into Tarquin because she
Yes.
describes seeing a male hand that she puts on the door. Yeah.
Very impressive. Can you imagine Rhys's pride?
Yes.
Oh, anyway.
Yeah.
So she manages to shift into Tarquin to trick the door into believing that she is him. And it unlocks to reveal a spiral staircase. They go down and then they find another door to unlock, and inside there's a dais and it has a box on top of it. Feyre describes being able to feel the box talking to her.
Yeah. Yes, it does. Yeah.
And it asks who she is, and she lies, and she says, I'm Tarquin. And then when she goes to grab the book, it calls her a liar.
Yeah. Yes. And the door slams closed.
And they're trapped inside.
Yeah.
So her and Amren are locked inside. Amren uses her power to blast the door away.
Yeah.
Thank God she's got Amren with her.
She describes it when Amren puts her hand on it as like swirling, like sort of things
Yeah.
come out like on the door.
Yeah.
Because we haven't seen any of Amren's power yet, have we? So this is the first time. Yeah.
That's right. So we need to make sure that we're talking about all of these things. So because of where the temple is, the water's flooding in.
Yes.
And they are quickly sealed in what is going to be their tomb of drowning.
Watery temple.
Yeah, it's not going to be a good time.
Yeah.
So the staircase is sealed shut. then unable to get it open, and they're very close to drowning when the door's ripped away by water wraiths.
I was not expecting this the first time I read it.
I just think it's going to be Rhys, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'll remember that the water wraith was the the water wraith was the fae who came to the tithe, didn't have
A basket of fish.
didn't have a basket of fish.
Yeah.
Feyre gave her the jewels.
Yeah.
She then paid the tithe with Feyre's jewels, and Tamlin lost his fucking mind.
Yeah.
And that was then Feyre was indebted.
Well, Alice actually said her and her sisters will never forget.
Yes.
Or they'll be indebted to you or something like that. Yeah.
So essentially the debt is now paid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Well, they actually say that. So when they grab them, they like swim them to the shore. And what I love is one of them actually punches Feyre in the stomach.
Oh, I forget about that.
Yeah. So she expels all the water.
Perfect.
that she was choking on.
Whatever works.
Yeah, and so one of them like punches her in the stomach and then looks her dead in the eye and says, "Our sister's debt is paid." I was like, "Oh,
amazing!
They are badass.
They are.
Yeah." So they swim to the shore.
Yep.
They get onto the water. Feyre and Amren both either pass out or similar, and Feyre's woken up to Rhys like towing her boot. Just such a Rhys thing to do. Like, don't rush over when you're.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just like, what are you two doing? Amren gives a short explanation around what happened. Apparently it set off every alarm in the place, which I actually think is why the water all rushed in as opposed to it just being the tide, because the tide was coming back when they went in. But I actually think it was an alarm orientated thing, and everything reacts to Tarquin's power.
That's right.
And protects the summer court.
Interestingly, though, Feyre has water manipulation. She doesn't enact it here. Surely she would have had some sort of breathing underwater, gillyweed type situation.
Well, I think...
I was waiting for you to... No?
So without Harry Potter, I'm thinking that... and this has happened, remember, at the Weaver's cottage as well, where she becomes overwhelmed and she forgets that she has power.
Yeah.
I think the same thing happened here. She became overwhelmed. And this time she had Amren with her, which is helpful, but also quite a big responsibility on Feyre because Amren is someone special to Rhys.
Yes.
So I think she purely forgot.
She just forgot.
And
Yeah,
they're
fair.
very, very lucky that the water wraiths found them.
Yes, indeed.
Which is also interesting because we've not heard of them being in any other court. We've only ever heard of them being in that pond at the spring court.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They are neighbouring courts, so I do wonder how quickly they travel and how widely they travel in water.
Yeah, that's right.
So, yes, the alarm was raised and Rhys couldn't get to all the guards, so he winnows them back to Valaris.
Yes. Yeah.
Book and all.
Yeah.
The box, so the book is in the box still, right,
Yeah.
at this point?
Yes.
So the box is talking to her as she tries to unlock it, and it keeps calling her a liar.
It keeps chanting
Yeah,
as well. It chants like, calls to like,
Yes.
made and unmade.
Yeah, which we hear a lot.
Yes. And she's like, stop saying that, just
I know.
open.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the book is on metal plates bound by 3 rings of silver, gold, and bronze, written in an alphabet that she's got no idea.
Yep.
And Amren says it is no language of their world.
Yep.
She says it is known as Leshon Hagodesh, the holy tongue. And Amren is the only one who can decode it.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that it was at this point that Amren realised why Rhys had chosen her to go with them. So Rhys actually says that he heard a rumour that the book was written in this particular language, and somehow he knew it was a language that Amren could read. Oof. And so he actually says to her during it, perhaps you might find what you've been looking for, Amren, referring to a way home for her.
Yes, her freedom.
Rhys also admits during this scene that he thinks Durian wants to resurrect Miriam.
Yes.
So Durian still believes Miriam to be dead.
Yes.
But she
Ain't.
is not. Yes. I don't think we've covered it yet, but Miriam, so we've only ever heard about her over dinner that one night.
Yes.
Miriam was Durian's lover.
Correct.
During the war. and he pushed her away with his vendetta against the Fae. And so he pushed her away and she fell in love with Draken. And so Jurian was then killed by Amarantha. Well, everything except his finger and his eye. And he's potentially resurrected already. We don't know that yet,
That's right.
if he is or isn't. But they believe that he wants to resurrect Miriam as well. And that's his motivation for working with the King of Highburn.
Right. So you think that Jurian is the pawn and he has motive.
Yeah.
But what is the King of Highburn's motive for the cauldron?
To destroy the wall.
Right.
That's what he'd wanted the whole time.
Cool.
Yeah, to destroy the wall and to rule as a king, like get rid of the High Lords and to rule everything.
As the one and only.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So the following day, a wooden box arrives from the summer court to Valaris.
Yeah.
And this is quite hectic now.
Yeah.
Inside are 3 blood rubies.
Yeah.
Now, blood rubies are a symbol of a
feud.
Yes, not even. A large feud.
A declaration.
A declaration of I'm going to fucking kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've sent them to the offender when a grave insult has been committed, which obviously a grave insult has been committed.
Yes.
Feyre flirted her way and exposed her juicy apples, delicious as they are, to Tarquin and, flitted about the court, learning about him, befriending him even, and then swooped in, took the book and
disappeared. They literally disappeared, during it.
Really nasty.
Yeah. Rhys is visibly affected by the arrival of the blood rubies. He's drinking and Feyre realises that for him, this is a bad day.
Yes.
He thinks he's stuffed up, right? So he knows he's done the right thing in terms of he's got the book, which we know is right, and he's given it to Amren, which is his family.
Yes.
And he knows that Amren needs this book. However, he does feel bad for deceiving Tarquin.
Yeah.
So he's drinking. Feyre realises that this is a bad day for him and that she wants to help him. And when Feyre is having a bad day, the way that Rhys helps her is to flirt with her.
Yes.
So she decides to flirt with him.
Yes.
She tells him about this little store that she's seen down in the shopping complex. And it's essentially the Valaris Fae version of bras and things. Is it not?
Yeah, there was a shop out in Moona called Barbarella's. It's not there anymore. It's called
The adult shop.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is called the adult shop.
There you go.
Anyway, but when it was called Barbarella's, it was like really seedy looking lingerie-ish, like not Victoria's Secret goodies.
Yeah,
it was
okay.
like questionable shit.
Right.
That's what it reminds me of.
So she finishes telling him about these little lacy unmentionables and that she was going to invite him to go shopping with her.
Yes.
Anyway, but she also says, maybe Tarquin would take these blood rubies right back if I wore some of these things for him. And Rhys has taken the bait, of course.
Yeah.
Before they get a chance to sort of get into it any further, Asriel comes from the sky and Feyre decides to leave and give them some privacy. She goes back down the stairs and shares with us the imagery of what she believed would have happened if Asriel hadn't arrived and that her and Rhys had gone to bras and things together.
Daydreaming.
Yeah. So she tells us the story about, it's all very sexy, and then she smacks her head on the post to the stairwell because it's actually a vision that Rhys has put in her mind.
Yes.
And again, it's a water spitting moment. But it's also what I find really interesting is that Rhys is still able to get through her shields without her even realising.
Like, it's not the shield.
Yeah. And I love that he's in such a bad mood, but he still does shit like that.
He's still Rhys.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So she heads to bed and, actually before she heads to bed, she says she has a very cold bath.
Can relate.
Yeah, then goes to bed. She's awoken in the middle of the night, though, to darkness, like essentially like a windy darkness coming in under her door, all around the cracks of the door.
Yeah.
The house groaning as if it's being moved around in a wind. She quickly identifies that it's Rhys's power and that she needs to go and find him and see exactly what it is that's going on.
Yeah.
So she jumps out of bed, goes down into the hallway. She knows vaguely where Rhys's room is. She bangs open the door. She has no idea of the layout of his room. She's never been in there. But she wanders around. She smacks her legs on the bed, which, like, ow, we've all been there.
I did that last night.
Yeah, yeah, ow. Jumps onto the bed or, like, leans down onto the bed and she's, like, patting around trying to find him. She says the bed's huge, obviously, to accommodate for his wings.
Yes.
And she finds him on the bed. She climbs up. She actually, like, straddles him and starts screaming his name, not only, like, fully, but in the bond. Shut up.
And he's naked.
He is naked. She doesn't know that yet. So she's screaming his name, screaming at him down the bond. There's nothing. So she actually slaps him.
Love this.
Yeah, slaps him once, no reaction at all, slaps him again, and there's like a crack in the bond in their mind. And he jolts awake, flips her around on the bed and pins her to the bed by her throat, which is both, you know, mark me down as scared and horny because, you know.
I'm here for it.
She realizes at this point that he is sitting on top of her naked.
Yeah.
And what an opportunity.
I know.
But I love that she describes, so she says, oh, you know, I didn't dare look below his shoulders. But then she's like, oh, my traitorous eyes. I'm like, it's not your fucking eyes. It's not your traitorous eyes, honey. It's you.
It's your traitorous pussy. I love it.
So this super sexy moment is actually interrupted by a really sentimental moment where her attention snags on the 2 tattoos on his knees.
Yes.
And as, again, very famous, come to know, the mountain with 3 stars on top, which is the symbol for Valaris and the symbol for the Night Court and Rhys's crown. His hands at this point are still ending in claws and his feet in talons. So he's sort of half shifted into his beast form.
Yes.
But as he comes back to realisation, they fade away. Everything settles down from there and Feyre realises that this is a really bad nightmare, that he says he has them as often as she does, and she puts 2 and 2 together about how everyone else is staying in the House of Wind and not in the townhouse because he doesn't want this affecting them.
That's right.
She asks about the nightmare and he says, there are some memories from under the mountain, Feyre, that are best left unshared, even with you. And I can't even begin to imagine what they are for them to affect someone like Rhys this much. She doesn't prod any further though, and she starts to realise that when she was having nightmares, the things that she wanted someone to do for her is what she will now do for Rhys.
Yes.
So she gives him a kiss on the cheek and she leaves. She looks back and she sees him on the bed and she has this like snapshot of an image of him on the bed and how she should paint it, and then that sort of promptly disappears. But more importantly, she realises that the hole in her chest is starting to fill in.
Yeah. Oh, we get a little nugget finally, don't we? Like purposeful touching.
Yes.
And purposeful feeling.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I did admit I thought this was the moment. I thought we were
The sexy moment.
Yeah.
I don't think
But I think it turned out to be even better.
I think it is better when you overtly get nudity and tension, but then you don't get the home run, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah. So the next day, Feyre goes across to Amren's apartment. This is the first time we hear about where Amren lives, other than that she lives somewhere in Valaris.
Her little hole.
That's right. Amren talks to Feyre about how she's going to learn to master the language again before she begins tackling the book. And Feyre says, well, how long will that take? And Amren's response is, didn't his darkness fill you in? I love it.
She's so sassy.
Yeah, I love it.
I love it too.
Feyre recalls that Rhys was gone this morning when she woke up, so they never had a chance to talk about his nightmare or anything else, but there was a magical note left thanking her.
Yeah. And she actually asks via the note what his knee tattoos mean.
Yes. Yeah.
And his response is that I will bow before no one and nothing but my crown.
which is lovely,
Isn't it?
But he has bowed when he put Feyre's skydiving harness on. Never mind. Feyre brings a little gift for Amren.
Yes.
Which is really sweet because it obviously creeps her out to no end, but that, you know, she does it because she cares for Amren.
Yeah.
She brings her two jars of blood.
I mean, look, I'm all for giving gifts with intention.
Yeah.
So I think this is quite nice.
Go. She asks Amren if she has a preference for what sort of blood she likes. And Amren tells Feyre that either lamb or goat because it reminds me of another time and place.
Ooh.
Which again is just another tiny little bit of information about Amren and what she actually is.
Interesting.
Feyre notices that Amren is using her blood ruby as a paperweight.
That is such an Amren thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah.
Varian isn't going to do much.
Well, he sent her a necklace.
Yes, he did.
The necklace that Feyre had noticed in one of the vaults to soften the declaration of the blood feud.
Yeah, so they've got a little thing.
They do.
happening.
They do.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what happens with that.
Me too.
Weeks of waiting now.
So Feyre is still continuing to train hand to hand with Cassian, and she actually does learn to wield an Illyrian blade.
Yay.
It is quite surprising, isn't it? Because she's only little.
Yeah.
She's also training with Rhys, obviously, to strengthen the use of her powers, but she hasn't been able to winnow since she winnowed with the day that she was captured by the ACOTAR.
Yep.
Yeah. So Rhys tells her a little bit more about the various High Lords that they haven't come across as yet. So we've already kind of touched on these, but I'll just revisit it. So Bayron is the High Lord of Autumn.
Yep.
He's cruel and vain.
Yep.
Callias is winter, quiet and cunning. Helion is the High Lord of Day, also known as Spell Cleaver.
Yep.
And Rhys specifically notes that the people of the Day Court excel at all kinds of spells and archive the knowledge of Prythian in their 1,000 libraries.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of history and spell work gathered in the Day Court.
Not only do I hope that we get a book about everyone in the inner circle, I also hope we get a book about all the High Lords.
The spin-offs could be incredible, couldn't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sarah. We have created you a number of tasks.
You're going to be busy forever.
Yes. So there's still ongoing flirting happening between magical notes between Feyre and Rhys.
Yeah.
And he happens to ask about her painting, and she's quite pained by this topic because she just
Still,
can't.
yeah.
She feels empty in regards to it used to fill her up, and now she just can't revisit that part of herself.
Yeah. She has had a few images of paintings that she'd
Yes.
like to do, but then they've sort of just disappeared, haven't they?
Yeah, just flickered away.
Yeah.
Rhys and Feyre have a discussion about if she asks him, have you always wanted to be the High Lord? And he sort of admits yes and no because his father was obviously really cruel and he didn't want to be like him. So yes, he wanted to be High Lord, but to ensure that there was a very big distinction between him and his father. They end up finally hearing back from the mortal queen. So they're going to go to her family's estate the following day, and the queen's demand they bring no weapons. And they asked for the exact location and layout of the house.
Needy.
Very needy. And then she realises why. Because the queens happen to winnow to that exact location. So that's a bit scary.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we haven't heard before about winnowing and how it works in terms of, so if you want to winnow somewhere you've never been before, do you need the exact location?
Coordinates.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Or is it just because they're mortal and they're not supposed to be able to winnow that they have to do some extra work in order to do it?
Yeah, that's interesting concept.
So Rhys, as an example, I'm assuming he's been to the summer court before, but he winnowed them into the summer court. What if he was going somewhere that he'd never been before?
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah, they'd probably have to plot it.
Yeah.
Something on the cloth.
Yes, that's right.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So that brings us to a very big chapter in chapter 40.
Yeah. So the queens arrive. There is only 5 of them. and there is meant to be 6 mortal queens.
Yes.
So Feyre describes the 5 of the queens. It's all a very interesting description. Rhys bows to them and asks where the 6th queen is, and their responses, they say that she was unwell and couldn't make the journey.
Yeah.
Which on my first read, I kind of went, okay, no problem, never mind.
Yeah.
But now that I know what I know, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, righto, yep. The oldest queen in the group recognises Moore when Rhys introduces her, and she says, Morrigan, the Morrigan from the war. I don't actually think she recognises her because these aren't the 5 or the 6 queens that the treaty was made with. This is their ancestors. Yeah. So they don't recognise her, but they recognise her name and what she represents.
The meaning. Yeah.
Yeah. Rhys tells them that war is coming, and they basically say, we already know that. And this strip of land this strip of mortal land is tiny in comparison to the vastness of the continent. It's not in their interest to defend it. And she basically puts it back on Rhys and says, well, why don't the Fae defend this territory then? If you're telling us that's what you want, then you do it. Because it's not worth it to us. Feyre and her 2 sisters are obviously very unhappy to hear that. The mortal queen mentions that even in the mortal lands they've heard of Rhysand, the High Lord of the Night Court, and his terribleness.
Oh.
Yeah. So they say that, you know, we've heard of you. We know that you have mind powers and you can shatter minds and things like that. So they ask for proof. They say, well, prove that you are a good person and that what you are saying is right and real, and we may consider giving you the book. So they ask for evidence, essentially. And Feyre puts 2 and 2 together and notes that the only evidence that they have that Rhys isn't who he presents himself as outside of the Night Court is Valaris.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is where it gets a bit stressy. Another thing is they ask the queens how they can winnow, because it's obviously not a thing that mortals can do.
Yeah.
So they say it's their secret and it was a gift from the Fae. There's also a notion that when they're asking them about the specifics of the book, the queens ultimately say that the book will never leave its sacred place, which is entirely what they need from these 5 women currently. Feyre pretty much ends up begging them for help, and they basically dismiss her and say, look, you're really young, you've got a lot to learn. Yeah. Which the rage inside me, I don't know if I feel this from like a childhood trauma perspective, but like I always get really annoyed when I feel like someone's palming me off because I'm too young to know better.
Yeah. Well, they do. They look down on her because they actually notice the crown that she's wearing.
Yes.
And so Rhys's crown is described as dark and shaped like a raven's feathers, and it is a sibling to the gold crown that she's wearing, and she feels a bit like an imposter because she's supposed to be the emissary, right?
Yeah.
And nothing's going well. It's not going right. They're being really difficult about it. And Moore actually interrupts them and goes on this massive spiel about how she was there during the war. She was there when Miriam saved the slaves that she promised to save after the war. And her declaration is, I am the Morrigan, you know me, what I am. You know my gift is truth, so you will hear my words and know them as truth. And honestly, I don't know what that means.
I don't know what it means either, but all I can take it is for just face value and that Moore won't lie for her own gain.
Yeah.
I don't think that it means that she's incapable of telling a lie. I just think that she's held to something of importance, that she will be the source of truth.
Yeah.
And therefore they must believe that.
Yeah. Moore actually reveals a secret that is very, very old, and she reveals that there's an island in a forgotten stormy part of the sea where Miriam and Dracon and their kids and humans or mortals and fae live together.
Yes.
So there is actually a place in the world where fae and mortals coexist.
Yes.
Without war, without a wall, without a divide.
Yeah.
The queens, again, ask for their proof, and Rhys says, well, when we summon you, you can come back and we'll give you proof. And they're like, don't try and summon us. Anyway, they leave and Elaine says one of the first things of importance that she'll ever say, which is, I hope they all burn in hell. That's it for this episode of the Night Shift Court podcast. Join us for next week's episode where we will continue the adventure from ACOTAR's Book 2, A Court of Mist and Fury.
Whichever platform you're listening on, we would so appreciate if you could give us a 5-star review. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Night Shift Court.
I hope the night is kind.